Sup, and welcome back to another Abydos story time. Today we're going to be reading another player biography, the bio of Immortal Whale. And we still have 8 diamonds by the looks of it. We haven't been looted. The Legend of Immortal Whale, a player bio by Griever 2, written on December 16th of 2020. At a time near Alexandria's death, the server was dying. Numbers were low and interest was fading. Without an established community, Alexandria was struggling to keep new players. But one player changed the entire history of Alexandria forever. Immortal Whale was a player looking for a new home sometime in May or June of 2020. After a few exchanges with Griever 2, he was invited to join the aging world of Alexandria. Little did we know how little time this ancient world had left in it. Immortal Whale was eager from the moment he joined the city, and the players immediately felt trust in this player. On his first day on the server, he decided to take on the Ender Dragon as a way of proving himself to the server. Griever 2 died in the battle, but Immortal Whale fought on and finished the battle, making sure to gather the gear dropped by Griever 2. Immortal Whale showed he was eager, he showed he was skilled, and he showed he was a team player. Griever brought Immortal Whale to the northern region of Alexandria, which at the time was split between the north and south nations. Immortal Whale would be the first player in 2 years to base in the north region, besides a few very short-lived players. Players had come into the area, but abandoned the world before any real work could continue. Since new players were never brought to the south, players taken to the north would be on their own to settle in. The isolation caused many players to quit. I believe at the time Immortal Whale came to Alexandria, nobody expected him to stay as long as he did. He came back the next day, and then the following day. Immortal Whale would come to work in Alexandria every day, quickly establishing bonds with the players. Immortal Whale would receive an invite to the south after just a few weeks of playing with the server. He had gained the trust of the server and had started to establish a base in the north, just outside of the legendary player Sammy's base. The first project he began work on was a modern iron farm. The North region was famous for its incredible iron production, and Immortal, not knowing the players of old, still really wanted to bring the North region back to glory. Immortal took pride in continuing the legacy of older players. The North would rise to glory once again, he would see to it, even if he had to do it alone. Luckily, he would not be alone much longer, as a new player Russell would be joining the North soon. The first base made by Immortal was a small hobbit hole in the side of a hill. He dug it out and made a small cozy base to store his belongings, but his priority was building the farms. All the North farms were outdated, so he had a lot of work to do. Despite farms being outdated, Immortal completed an iron farm, a bamboo farm, a sugarcane farm, and a tree farm in his first week in. The North had production again for the first time in almost 2 years. Around this time, a new player would join the server. Russell was a player who would join the server about a month after Immortal Whale. He would join Immortal in the North, and finally the North had a community of 2 players. With 2 skilled players, the North continued to expand. Shortly after Russ joined, Immortal would begin his most ambitious project, the biggest gold farm the world had ever seen, and the second largest farm the world had it built in it. He would construct the farm in just a few days. The farm far exceeded expectations, producing staggering amounts of gold. The North was now producing enough gold for the entire server from a single farm. The North was gaining power as their ability to produce valuable resources was growing quickly. The North was still far from done growing, because this team of 2 would quickly become a community of 4 players very soon. Around the completion of the farm, a new player would join, Bloodhoney, a newer player but extremely ambitious. The addition of Blood created a community in the North, an actual community. No community existed in the North ever since the old North leader QB left. It was unsure if the North would ever have a community again, and now it did. Shortly after Blood joined, his friend Lone Wanderer would join, and with 4 players in the North, the community began developing rapidly. Immortal Whale is the player responsible for the revival of the North. Others can be given credit as well. The North would continue to grow, and it would seem that nothing would stop the North from returning to its former glory. The players were very active, very ambitious, and worked together well. Their community was very united, just like the Old North. Sadly, the North would never reach its full potential. Only weeks after the North reached 4 players, the world would begin to crumble. Chunks would begin wiping out anything on them, sometimes just leaving a gap to the void. The world was ending. Players could do nothing but watch in horror as land would pop up in the middle of oceans or oceans where there was once land. Buildings were being impacted and players knew in the end was near. After 6 years, Alexandria was dying. The North was finally a strong community, but sadly it was too late. As the errors increased to several a day, the server host had the most difficult choice to make. Keep Alexandria open and risk complete destruction, or close it down. The server host knew what he needed to do. He needed to shut down the doors to Alexandria forever. This was the only way to preserve the world at all. And just like that, Alexandria ended. Immortal had worked so hard to bring the North to glory. With Alexandria dead, it was unsure what would happen now. Some players discussed stopping, while others were interested in starting a new server. A choice was made to create a new world, a world far greater than Alexandria. With all players in agreement, a new world was formed. Immortal was just as eager to pioneer this new world and even proclaimed it would be the best server on console. It was in this new world of Abydos that Immortal would meet the Sloth. The Sloth was a legendary redstone technician who lived in Alexandria's south before Immortal was a player. Since Immortal was a skilled redstone technician, they quickly became friends and began rapidly constructing the new farms of Abydos. These farms are some of the main farms used by players to this day, such as the Iron Farm, the Mob Farm, the food buildings, flower farms, and more. In record pace, they brought farms to Abydos. The duo was remarkable in skill. The new industrial sector was in full swing thanks to Immortal's work. Abydos was growing at paces far faster than seen in Alexandria and showed its promising future. This truly was going to be as Immortal wanted, the greatest console server ever. Despite the amazing growth and the fondness people had for Immortal, all good things must come to an end. As quickly as he came, he was gone. Players noticed right away, as he was such an active player. As days turned to weeks, they continued to pass with no sign of Immortal. The world started to understand that Immortal Whale was gone. Players reached out to him, and he would come back for very short visits a few times, but even that faded. This is where the story of the Immortal Whale ends. His impact on Alexandria and Abydos will be present forever, and he will live in the memories of all who met him. Is Immortal Whale gone for good? Some say yes, others hold on to the hope that he will return. But the bottom line is that without Immortal sticking it out alone in the North, it's possible a community would have never been established again. He earned his position as the new leader of the North and the Master of Gold. Regardless of if the legendary player Immortal Whale returns or not, the memory of him will live on in the players who met him forever. When Abydos is the greatest server the world has ever seen, we can look back and remember the Immortal Whale. And that is the story of Immortal Whale, the legendary player of Abydos. So here we are at the Abydos graveyard, and we're going to visit the tomb of Immortal Whale. So I don't think much was recovered from him because he kind of just faded out. And like I said, gear recovery is very uncommon because of that. People just kind of fade out and their gear goes with them. So what do we have in here? We have 2 flowers. I'm not too sure who would assign them. You suck at COD. That was definitely me. You suck at MC2. That was definitely me. Never knew you. And a flower named Immortal Whale. That's all that remains. I don't know if any of these were actually possessions of his or not, but yeah, this is where the story of Immortal Whale ends. But one day we're going to have to also get to the story of this player, Blood Honey.